Over the past 6 months, the Fed has been tremendously proactive in its efforts to preserve liquidity and help our economy recover. By some reports, when you add in the stimulus and other activities, our government has spent or guaranteed over $7 trillion. And the question I'm hearing from my constituents is not so much transparency going forward, but backwards. They would like to know how that money was spent and who were the counterparties and what were the guarantees. I have been told that there have been individual suits and suits by news agencies that have sued the Fed in a Freedom of Information request for foreclosure, for disclosure of borrow banks and their collateral, and that to date none of this information has been released. And not going forward on transparency. Everyone's talking about transparency, but what I keep hearing from my constituents, they want to know what happened to these guarantees. They want to know not just that it went to AIG, but then what did AIG do with it, and tracking that. And is that information available? Can you make that information available?
Congresswoman, I think these numbers that get thrown around, like 7 trillion and 9 trillion and 12 trillion, I think they're adding apples, oranges, bananas, and grapefruit all together. They're adding all kinds of incommensurate quantities into one big number.
Well, they were adding the stimulus plan, the TARP plan, and the Fed window. But let's not use numbers. Let's say the Fed spending. What happened to it? Is that available now? I am told there have been suits and it's not available to the public.
So first of all, I want to insist that the Fed does not spend. We lend.
Lend and guarantee.
We are repaid. We are repaid without exception. We are going to provide as much information as we can, but there's a good reason. The one in particular that you mentioned is why don't we reveal the overnight short-term loans we make to banks? And in the recent period, almost every big bank and many of the medium and small banks in the country have borrowed from us for short periods, and we could give that list, I suppose. The risk we have is that during periods where fewer banks borrow, being put on that list is some sort of saying to the market, I had to go to the Fed, maybe there's something wrong with me, and that causes trouble for the bank. So if we have to give that information, and we will if Congress insists, but if we have to give that information, it will destroy that program and have a significant adverse effect on the liquidity provision and the stability financial system. So that is one case where I think that there's
that's one case, but in the guarantees, the sort of the bulk guarantees, certainly to know the counterparties and the guarantees there should be made available.
Which one are you referring to?
I would say the ones to the major banks, to AIG, those.
The information about AIG and Bear Stearns and Bank of America and Citi there's a monthly report which is given to Congress, provides all the information, and we're happy to try to make sure that all that information is available to the Congress.
And that includes the counterparties and the guarantees and that information?
To whom we make the loans? Yes, of course.
What gets me is we keep trying so many things, and what I'm hearing from the public and what I hear from my colleagues in Congress is that the loans are not getting out to the public. Now, banks say that they're increasing their loans, but there is some type of disconnect. Maybe they're long-term loans that were made a long time ago. New credit is not getting out into the markets. We just came back from a retreat of the Democrats, and my colleagues were telling me across the country in every state, they feel that their constituents are telling them they can't get access to credit. Very reasonable, respected businesses are having their long-term credit cut, and there's no credit for commercial loans, and there seems to be a huge problem there. And I'd like to hear your ideas. Obviously, the bank system is the wheel that has to get our economy going, yet we hear that part of the new program is there's going to be a business and consumer loan program coming from the Federal Reserve. Why is that coming from the Federal Reserve? Shouldn't that be coming from our financial institutions? Why can't we get them working properly? Is the problem the toxic assets? Do we need to get them off the books? I don't think we should have to create a new lending system. Why can't we get the lending system that has served this country for decades working? Why is credit not getting out there to the public? And what can we do about it?
Well, Congresswoman, one very important fact about the American financial system is that only about half of the loans in normal times come through banks. The other half goes through other kinds of markets, like securitization markets. And all the programs I described today are about getting credit card lending, auto loans, student loans, commercial paper loans, mortgage loans, commercial mortgage-backed securities, all those things going again. That program will help get credit flowing outside the bank, so that's an important part because that's about half of our credit system. Then the other part of the program that Secretary Geithner talked about this morning is about recapitalizing, taking away the bad assets, and getting the banks working again. So it's really two parts, and I think you have to address both parts, or else you're not going to get people won't give people the access to the credit that they need in order to carry on their lives and their businesses.